Would you please stand and join me in the pledge? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This is a city of Lander regular city council meeting, Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023 at 6 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order. Rachel, I'll do roll call. Councilman Josh Hahn. Here. I'm doing roll call.
I am present.
Councilwoman Stubble.
Present.
Councilwoman Cox.
Present.
Councilman Hahn.
Present.
Councilwoman White.
Present.
Councilman Larson.
Yes.
And Mayor is here, all accountable. Thank you. Before we approve the agenda, we have a change on the agenda. Councilman Larson.
Yes, Mayor, I move to amend the agenda and add the resolution 1290 exempting the Museum of the American West property from the open container provisions of City Ordinance 2-2-12 as item F under new business action items.
Okay, don't let me forget it.
What's that?
Don't let me forget it.
Okay.
So can I get a motion to amend the agenda? Can I get a second?
Move to approve as amended.
Okay, any other questions, concerns?
Second.
Okay. We'll move on with call for the question. Councilman Jehan.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, first of all, is we do have communication from the floor. If you have something to say, please approach the mic up here and state your full name for the record. This meeting and comments are electronically recorded. All comments will be limited to 3 minutes. So is there any comments from the floor? Any comments? Okay, since there is none, we'll move on. First on the our agenda is a proclamation. Councilwoman Stubble.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a proclamation for Gilbert Rao Day. Whereas thousands of citizens answered the call to serve our nation in the armed forces of the United States, and whereas these men and women returned from the armed forces as experienced veterans and overcame many challenges to take their rightful place among the ranks of all Wyomingites. And whereas veterans contribute to our nation, not only by military service, but by continuing to serve their fellow veterans and citizens from all walks of life. And whereas these veterans bring to us now a sense of duty, patriotism, discipline, and willingness to serve others that remind us of our obligations to our country and the price that is paid for our freedom. And whereas it is our duty to honor the men and women who served in the military and who nobly defended the freedom of the people throughout the world and of our nation. And whereas Sergeant Gilbert Rao served his country in the United States Army as a wireman and communication specialist during the Vietnam era. And whereas Gilbert Rao served this community through his devotion to his church and its various programs, and as a volunteer on various boards and committees, including the Lander Food Bank and Special Olympics. And whereas Gilbert Rao continued to serve this community with the phone company and through his commitment to veteran service organizations. And whereas Gilbert Rao represents the epitome of service to our community and nation, a debt of gratitude we can never repay. Now, therefore, I, Julia Stubble, on behalf of Mayor Monty Richardson, do hereby recognize May 29th, 2023 as Gilbert Rao Day in the city of Lander and urge all Lander residents to give heartfelt thanks in honor of his service, of the service he so selflessly gave. On this 23rd day of May 2023, so proclaimed.
Thank you.
Drove your hanky, did you?
On behalf of all of the veteran service organizations and most particularly veterans in our community, I'd like you, council, staff members for providing the opportunity to recognize
Well, again, I just thank you guys and all the veterans and we have in Fremont County, and a great thanks go out to all of them. So we appreciate it. Okay, moving on, mayor and council updates. Start Councilman Larson today.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to update the council that here a couple weeks ago, I had sat through a podcast or a Zoom meeting regarding the Wyoming broadband and the things that the state's trying to do there. And to be real honest, there was a lot of that stuff that was way over my head as far as what they were wanting to do, but it was trying to get broadband to every mailing address within the state. And sounds like it's pretty ambitious endeavor, but they've got some money to be working on that. I just received another email today on another meeting, and so I'll keep up with that and see where that goes. And other than that, Mayor, I don't know of anything else right now.
Well, thank you for doing that, John. Appreciate that. Councilman White.
Thank you, Mayor. Following up on what Councilman Larson said, the two of us met with Andy Gramlich for a few hours the other day, last week, learning more about the process that LEDA and LIFT go through for the economic development. Had a lot of just great conversations, good learning. And I believe we have some opportunity tonight during our work session for continued conversation among us for that, but really helpful to get that information. Planning commissions continuing to do really great work, looking at ways we can create more housing opportunities in Lander. And at some point that will come before us as a group for consideration. And lastly, sadly, I did not make it to the Pathfinder graduation, but got to Lander Valley graduation and fantastic celebration. It was just wonderfully done, wonderfully attended, and congrats to all of the grads from in and around Lander for their hard work and success. They have a lot to be proud of. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman on.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of things. One, Lander Golf meeting. They're doing some aerating on the greens. They're going to try to change out the bunker sand. Hopefully they get water. Supposed to maybe today, but also they have golf merchandise on sale. And I wanted to thank Brett Berg for donating. He donated a post hole digger to the guys, the time of it anyway. And then my second thing, I wanted a little info on grants, the so-called free money people talk about. Government grants come from tax collections mainly, along with some of the foundations and corporation grants, but mainly hardworking taxpayers. Free money isn't free, people. U.S. employment right now is 60%. That's 15 hours and up. So only 60% are paying taxes to contribute to these so-called free dollars. Grants cost the taxpayers, and they put a burden on tax people. So I just wanted people to know next time that you think you're getting something free, you're not. And to think about the taxpayers, the 60% that are paying in. So anyway, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Cox.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple of opportunities to attend the Fremont County School District #1 School Board. They always have a lot on their agenda. They're working really hard at trying to resolve some issues as it relates to really not focusing, but really trying to curtail our substance abuse related issues in Fremont County. And I know that oftentimes you'll find boards, councils, commissions divided, but when it comes to students and kids' well-being, it's something that unites the majority of us for sure. And so it's really nice to be a part of those conversations when people are having discussions that are generally focused about what is in the best interest of the students they serve. And so my hat goes off to them. Those are tough discussions and trying to, figure out what's happening here in Fremont County, specifically Lander. That goes deeper in, if any of you have any expertise or knowledge or anything of how to stop the use of marijuana specifically and vaping tobacco or nicotine, I should say, it's not necessarily tobacco, and you have a really bright idea, we have a suggestion box, gladly would take any, because it is definitely a battle. Another meeting that I attended twice was with the Community Services Block Grant. And I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but that's under the direction of Fremont County Association of Governments. So Gary Michaud provides oversight. That those dollars come from federal dollars that are filtered through the state. And for several years now, as long as the Community Services Block Grant has been around, they have done sub-grantees. So they help fund Eagles Hope, which is the transitional living facility in Riverton. They've helped fund I don't even know what they're called now, but funding for housing, the group homes, for injury prevention resources, and they've provided a significant amount of dollars to those agencies and resources in Fremont County. They are no longer going to be doing that. They have shifted their model and how they're going to approach that funding. And the model that they've decided on is basically a case management program where they're going to make a valid attempt at getting and reaching more people and getting them out of poverty. So this is a really good opportunity for our county, because now it will be more far reaching. So Du Bois, Lander will see more benefit to that. Riverton, the only one, there's another, it's Fremont County. I think Arapahoe is excluded because they have their own. So that program is going to be really phenomenal. It's going to attempt in a very real way to get a number of our, those who struggle at the poverty level to provide resources to get them out of poverty. And it's a really great model. And I'll continue to update you on that, because there's a lot of work going into that right now. And I think some really good, powerful things will be happening. I also attended LEDA. And for those that don't know, it's Lander Economic Development Association. And they're the City of Lander's Economic Development Association. And you talk about we're really fortunate here in Lander to have highly qualified volunteers. I don't know where these people come from and why they choose to do this, but it impresses me on a humbling level. I think our meeting was 3 hours, 2 hours. It was long. It's a long meeting to be volunteering your time for. But we as a LEDA board have a strategic plan in place and are moving forward with priorities and what that looks like and how we're going to make sure we deliver that appropriately. And part of that is the Maven grand opening occurred. What a spectacular facility that is, and a really good opportunity for some funding for the city. And then also the Wyoming Outdoor Weekend was a success, more so than years past. And if you did not have an opportunity to go to that, I would encourage you to mark that on your calendar for next year. It is generally around the graduation weekend as an attempt to get more people that aren't normally in Lander there to kind of absorb some things that we have to offer as well. So good job to LEDA and to also the partners that put on that weekend. Thank you for doing that. And then aside from that, also would like to echo graduates. There was a lot of graduates. Lander Valley High School, Pathfinder High School, and also an enormous amount of college graduates from Lander that you see, of course, on social media, but they're representing Lander well, and congratulations to them.
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Stoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two groups to report on. I attended first one of the meetings of the Energy and Environment Task Force, whose main topic on that agenda that night was taking to heart our direction and the strategic priorities we set of coming up with a recommendation around a emissions reductions target. So there was much discussion in the group about the various types of targets and then how best to present those to us. At one point, the group was wondering if they should present a variety of options, 3 or 4. And I offered to them that I think we view them as the experts in this very technical area, and that if we were to choose from a wide range of options, we don't really have the background to make that choice. So I've asked them to make one recommendation, and then if that's not one that suits us, they can come back with a secondary one after that. And I hope that that's amenable to the council. If not, speak with me and we can have them bring us a buffet, but it can get highly technical. It's hard for me to even track at times. And it's amazing to me, to your point about the talented volunteers that are bringing work to us and helping inform our decisions. That group is phenomenal too. I also attended the Pacosia Conservation District Board meeting, and I'm just also impressed by the variety of complex issues that they deal with on a daily and monthly basis, with a wide range of various types of local, state, and federal regulation, various types of stakeholders, and they really look for voluntary and incentive-based solutions to a range of problems. And so I was present while they discussed one about protecting our water quality. There were some issues that I'm sure Lance has a better update on than I do. It was 2 weeks ago around some erosion in the river, around the Farthing property. And this is the other side of the river from the Alexander subdivision we just approved probably about 6 months ago, but there's some erosion this year on that curve of the river. And that erosion is going to, or is possibly already impacting, or I should say implicate, Lance. I'm looking for you to not cringe too much with my language. Could implicate some city utilities and YDOT property as well. So my information on that is 2 weeks old. Lance, if you think there's something we should be updated on, please add it to your staff updates. And then lastly, the group was going through their budget, as we all are, budget season. And I'll report on that, I think, when they get to a final version versus the draft that they went through this year, or this month. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Jehan.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention our Lander City Park playground. I gave each of the councilmen a pictures. My wife took the children down there and her niece. It's kind of discouraging to see. The playground is, I didn't get any pictures of all the garbage, but it's full of leaves, it's full of weeds, it's trashed. I went down there before the meeting to make sure that, somebody didn't clean it up this weekend. Looks exactly the same, maybe a little more garbage. And I think, everybody goes to the park to enjoy it and trust that their little kids would be safe in there, but don't know what could be under those leaves or, some of that stuff in there. If they get poked with a needle or get cut by glass, probably not a good thing. So I don't know, I don't know who does that. I know the grass looks really nice, but the playground doesn't. That's all I have.
Thank you. Just real quick. I think there's a few people who don't understand. I think we're getting out of our lanes sometimes. And employees and personnel belong to the mayor. And you need to come contact me with issues instead of bringing it to this meeting, because then I can make things happen with Lance in the proper way. I think that there's been a lot of personnel and a lot of communication going on behind the screens, being emails and stuff to department heads. And I'd like to rein that in, and you come through me, please. And then that's the procedures that we do. Don't run to the department heads if you have an issue with something or you hear chitter chatter going on. Please bring it to me. And like I said, let's try and stay within the lane and follow procedures. That's when we let things get out of hand, and we're going to tighten the reins a little bit. So like I said, we just really need to make sure we stay within our lanes and kind of overstepping some boundaries.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Go
I
ahead.
believe that's a public park, and I believe the city should hear what's going on with
Let
their
me
park,
finish,
correct?
please, I'll have the floor. Let me
You
finish.
just told me to go
Oh, I
ahead.
didn't know you were gonna go back to this, so, but anyway, I'm just saying, if you bring that comment to me, Josh, I can take it to the proper place it needs to go. And that's what I would like to do. That's why it's been done in the past, and I'd like to continue doing that in the future. So to bring that up, I think if you'd have brought it to me, we could have went to the Parks Department. We just hired a full staff down there now. They started all today. So hopefully that will help relieve some of the pressure on the park, getting more people out there cleaning and raking, those type of areas. But like I said, personnel is city, council is budgetary and policies. So we will leave it on with that. That's where I'm gonna leave it. And I apologize. I just interrupted you again when I said, go ahead. But like I said, let me just finish that. We need to take and follow the chain of command. Because once we stop following chain of command, we get loosey-goosey and everything goes south. So, like I said, I think there's a lot of things that's going outside their lane. People are doing outside their lanes. I think we need to just pull back a little bit. Make sure that I get contacted on some of this stuff. And if you have people worried about personnel issues, please call me. If you hear rumors out there about personnel issues, have those people come and talk to me. You know, and it's just, I'm going to tell you one right now. It's about the captain's position. I hear a lot of stuff going on. You know, on this cap, it's not even a position that we even have a job description for. That's a long ways down the road. And I don't know why that's brought up now. That's something that the chief and Rachel and myself, we're all working and we'll work on as time goes on. But like I said, right now, that shouldn't even be a topic out there, and I see it is. So I'd like to just, when you have somebody come and tell you that we're hiring from outside or we have no idea, but I know if we do fill that position, it'd be the best person that we can find. And I have great people working for us as department heads. And like I said, just please contact me and let me know. And that way I can help you disseminate the right information. Councilman Hahn?
Yeah, I guess I'll text Lance once in a while and I did text the chief today on some things that I heard. I'm wondering if what you're talking about is me with concerns going to the chief, or if I see something and I go to Lance, are you telling me that they don't want me to do that?
I'm telling you, personnel issues right at this point. in
Well,
time.
I don't usually do that. If I have comments, you know, I may.
But- Right, what I'm saying, I'm just talking personnel right now. 'Cause
So
sometimes we step
that is
outside.
that's not a problem.
You're calling Lance on an issue or something?
Yeah, anytime if I see something or is that a problem?
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
talking personnel issues.
Well, I was just wondering because
No.
I text the chief on some stuff and it did have to do with the captain and that position. And all I was doing was communicating things that I heard. So he had some information.
Okay.
I just wanted to know
Well,
if that was a problem.
No. Well, what I'm saying about this is a position that's we've just approved and we have not even have a job description for it. I don't know who started this rumor out there, but we need to curb it. If you would have contacted me on it, I said, Dan, that's not true. There's nothing going on with the captain position. I mean, we're looking 6, 7, 8 months down the road. So, like I said, I just want to make sure we stay in the lanes when it comes to personnel. So, and then moving on, I had some good things happen. I attended Fremont County Leadership. Takes 9 months to go through that course. And we finished up last week and we'll have a graduation. It's kind of seems funny talk about graduations. We'll have a graduation ceremony on Friday, see if I passed it or not. So we like the rest of the graduates, see if I get a blank diploma or one that's signed. So, but that's a good program that's in Fremont County. And I just want to put that out there that if we can get people to attend that, I mean, it helps. We go to all the businesses around Fremont County. We work with them. They work with us, tell us about their business, how they're funded. And like I said, it's a good program. So I enjoyed it. Kind of leery at first, but then you get settled into it. It's a good way to make good contacts through the Fremont County. And like I said, that's a good program. So I really like it. I think I'm the first mayor that has taken it. I was curious because we've sent some other people to it, but I'd like to send more people to it this next year. So on that note, that's pretty good. And I'd like to echo what everybody says about the graduating classes. I mean, our seniors worked 13 years to get where they're at, and congratulations to them. Well, job served. So, but anyway, on that note, I will get off my high horse. And Councilwoman White.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple other things I wanted to note. One, I just took a walk, including going through McManus, and there is a little bit of water building up there, so folks to be aware of. It's not over the sidewalk, but we now have McManus Pond as well, apparently, or shallow swamp or something. The other one, I again want to give a shout out to the those who have need of meals. A Good Samaritan meal happens on Friday, this past Friday. It was corn dog for the entree, and 275 meals were served. So again, if folks are in need, to please swing by on Friday evenings. And also, if you're available, if you have means, time, or finances, that would be a lovely place to support our community. And then also, please help spread the word about the Methodist Pantry. They call it a pantry. I got to tour it last Friday. It's 2 sizable rooms with dry goods, toiletries. They have frozen foods, refrigerated foods, house type things, toilet paper, etc. It's funded entirely by the congregation of the Methodist Church, which is an incredible level of generosity. And it's open for folks during the regular church office hours. You can come once every 2 weeks and get what you need. And that's a pretty amazing service to offer. I know there's folks in our community who depend very strongly on things like that. And it's nice to know we have those options in the community. Again, strictly through the generosity of their congregation, which is, it's really impressive. So thank you,
good.
Mayor, for letting me add that.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on. Staff reports. Lance, you're up first tonight.
Yes, thanks, Mayor and Council. I've got a few items down below that I'll be talking some more, but we did have the final walkthrough with the Wyoming Office of Homeland Security today on the FEMA projects. So I think that's a box that we checked, getting closer to the end and reimbursement on that project. The publication that went out was not entirely accurate. So if you guys have questions on that program and how that works, feel free to ask, but we're still working through that process with the state and the federal government through the reimbursement. So if you have confusion about that program, feel free to, ask me, or we can talk more. The farthing slip, I guess I'll get into that a little bit since you mentioned it, Julia, but yeah, that is a vertical cliff, we think, that's pushing above 50 feet, that's encroaching on the highway right away. And so water is continuing to cut and calve, we're seeing it fall off. And then the utility that's being impacted is actually the cemetery ditch. And so we are a member and sit on the board of that ditch company. But it's not really a major utility we use, but in the highway right away, there are other utilities that may be impacted. So what we're looking at from the city's perspective is, okay, this looks like a partnership between a lot of different agencies potentially, all the way from Trout Unlimited to the Highway Department to the Conservation District and others, maybe FEMA additionally. And if we can put something together to not have that river completely take out the highway, and what that high bank fix is going to be. And then also, what does that mean if the river does get rechannelized or moved down below? We don't want to see additional velocities causing issues down by Poor Farm Road or in that area. So it's fairly complex and complicated. There's not a lot of reinforcement on any of that channel down below. A lot of that's private property. But we do have a subdivision that's being proposed to be constructed down there and have some obligation to make sure that it's going to be safe, and we're not going to see a channel hopefully realign itself in that area. So right now it's the discovery stages and everybody's kind of looking at, well, who should be the primary applicant or partner? One of our issues is that we know that high priority is infrastructure here. And so, not trying to, obligate the city into any sort of situation, but if we can be an avenue for funding that could come in, we're kind of being asked if we could be a central hub to that. So we'll face that more as we get more information. Right now, it's got to be, okay, what's impacted? How bad is it? Where's it going? The Farthings used to be able to walk down to the river from their house, and now they walk off a cliff to get down to the river. So it's getting pretty scary as far as that house. And I do not think that anybody should go visit it or look at it at this point. It is super saturated from all of the snow that runs into that drainage. So everything's saturating from the top down. I think it's lost 9 feet already this season. So, don't go take a peek. That's not one where we want people anywhere close or trying to find it. I mean, it's safer from the other side of the channel looking up than trying to get next to the highway right away and looking down. And so our water line projects, there's still something we're trying to make happen. We've ordered a lot of water line that's sitting in the backyard to get going on these projects. And we're going to use hourly rates with local contractors to replace the sections of line that are no longer connected and that we need to get lowered and reconnected. We're waiting on valves. So, if the public asks, where are we at with that and timeline? As soon as we get those in, we'll move on those projects. But really, we have that supply and demand issue like everybody else has. And once it arrives, you'll see us in these streets where we've had issues digging back up. Why we haven't patched some of these areas is because we're going to be digging it back up, lowering the line, putting people on temporary services, and then reconnecting them at a lower elevation to a new main. Are there any other questions, I guess, for me? I'd be happy to answer any questions. And Dan, I guess to get into your answer, I think that I talk to each one of you individually at different times all the time. So, if you go through the mayor, CC him and he's in the know, that's great. But I think that I'm more than happy to try to help resolve whatever issues. Just, it's not any one thing with me by any means. So.
Councilman White, question?
Thank you, Mayor. Lance, a question for you. I don't know if you can answer this right now. This is one of the things I texted you about individually, was what's become of the less than quality work that the subcontractor from YDOT did for Garfield and some of the other places with a chip seal. And you were in the midst of trying to figure out next steps with that. Do you have any next steps that can be shared at this point about what to do with the shoddy work they did?
I think that that's a higher level meeting with the regional office rather than the local office. So it's still being resolved and discussed. We withheld payment, but withholding payment didn't necessarily mean that the contractor's coming back or that it got withheld from them. So I feel like right now who we withheld payment from was actually YDOT. So we'll have to see how they resolve that project because they were overseeing it and in charge of the funding and the release of that. We said that we didn't want to pay or release the amounts when we saw the problems out there. A lot of that may have gotten accepted and maybe lessons learned on maybe the partnership projects or better projects that we just put out internally and have more control rather than piggybacking on, a chip seal and a highway. They can be really good, or I guess, it's part of a larger project that we don't have a ton of control over. So maybe we'll reapproach how we do that approach that differently or how we do that in the future. But I'll give an update when I have one. I think that there's meetings to come.
Great. Thank you for that. It's just, it's one of those things that I think it's nice to, even when there's not great clarity about next steps, I think it's something that folks who are on those streets often think about and have questions about. So even knowing that it's now having to be bumped up at a higher level, I think it's important to keep getting back out to folks, as well as reiterating that, no, we have not paid and we are not going to pay at this point, that we will toe the line on that.
Well, and I think some of the contractors' reasoning on this was that if they oversprayed those black areas, then it actually had aggregate at the appropriate depths. And the only way to really check that is to start drilling and taking cores out of the new road. And I'm like, well, just be nice, if we shouldn't have oversprayed anyway, to get repairs and patches and additional aggregate in those spots, but they may be dark because of overspray was their reasoning. So we did look, there's some areas with some pushed aggregate in there, really hard to tell, how much thickness you have of a chip seal without starting to compromise the roads a little or drill into it. You're welcome.
Thank you.
So
Councilman Hall?
who's in charge of I guess, watching the job until the end and making sure that it's done correctly before letting them go?
YDOT.
YDOT's in charge in town because
Mhm.
it's their
With
job or?
those- With those projects, that's a YDOT agreement and contract, and they're the supervisors of the job.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other? Right. Hunter, did you have anything? Nope.
I'm available for question if you need anything, but
Okay,
lots of building going on. That's about it.
all right, sounds good. Chris?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just an update for the airport for you guys. We just had a meeting today with Armstrong up there for the final inspection. There's about a 1 to 3 inch drop off the asphalt, so we're not gonna open it until I get that fixed. They should have crews here tonight to start working on it first thing in the morning. So hopefully we can get that part fixed and then we'll reopen the rest of the airport. For the fire side, we are doing a siren testing for the emergency alert system. It's gonna be Wednesday, May 31st at noon. It's gonna be a series of 3 different tests. They are of course, the fire, which is a wail. It's a high-low tone for about 1 minute. And then the second test is an alert, which is a solid tone for 2 to 5 minutes. We're not sure the exact time frame on how long it's gonna last for. And followed by a public announcement. So that would be like in case of a flood, we'll set that off and then do a public announcement on that. So we just want to do a test to make sure it's all working before we have the actual event.
Sounds good. Any questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Stoll?
thank you. Chris, you might have already thought of these as a suggestion, not a question, but I can picture the Facebook posts, either just after that happened. So I know we'll probably put on our social media, allowing, like saying this is a test, this is what's gonna happen. But there's a variety of other, I'm thinking like Facebook pages happening in Lander, those kind of ones that might be good to post on as well, just because it's, not everybody tracks our page exactly. And we can help
Correct.
spread the word too, but I can picture the, we might still get a lot of, what has happened, but we'll
Sure.
try to.
Yeah,
elevate that if we
and
can.
and with our community development coordinator, she's gonna be advertising it. So.
That would be great to get, sorry to interrupting, Mayor. That would be great to get onto the electronic signboard as well as a repeating message.
Okay, she's right over there, Ann.
The press release will go out. We were gonna wait till Thursday, so people weren't confused about which Wednesday the alert was going to take place. So it's already written and approved by Chris, so we'll send that out, but we'll get it out in the other typical means. I haven't thought about using the digital sign, but we can reconsider.
Thank you. Attorney Phillips.
I don't have anything tonight. Thank you.
Rachel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm starting to use the new agenda and minute software. There may be some learning curves there. I noticed after I'd published the packet that, for example, the work session pulled new and old business, but it says action items, and obviously we don't have action items on the work session. So I apologize about that. Trying to get some of the templates streamlined. So let me know if you see anything unusual so that I can know that that needs to be fixed. Other than that, we have hired Justin Womack for the street department, so he started with us today. Any questions for
We
me?
have questions?
Good, thank you.
Yes, Rachel?
How are we doing on the summer help stuff? We've been getting some applications.
We have, and I believe we have one more interview scheduled that I anticipate will go well. And we have approximately 6 or so part-time employees in the Parks Department, 3 for the cemetery, 4 counselors and a camp director.
So we've got everything taken care of for the Sinks Canyon Camp and everything there. and lawnmowers and whatever else for the city on. Great, wonderful, thank you.
And I think most of our summer help started today, so that's gonna be a big help down at our parks. We've had two because Kevin retired, so.
Yeah, part of the summer help, sorry, Mr. Mayor, was that some of them are students. So waiting to return from college, and some of them work in the school district. So waiting also for the summer season to arrive. But many of them are slated to start this week, if not next. We should be looking better.
Thank you. All right, is there nothing else? We'll move on to new business. Item A. Authorize mayor to sign a Lander municipal hangar lease between the city of Lander and David Griffin. Chris?
Thank you, Mayor. David Griffiths purchased a new hangar up at the airport, so this is just his lease agreement for the 15 years.
Questions?
Yes, right by the fuel farm, yep.
I do have a couple of questions,
Yeah.
Mayor. Thank you. I did review the agreement, and there were a couple of errors within it, like, and I'm not drawing this out to make the correction now. I have a procedural question. Because there are a couple of errors, but the one that we received in our packet is already signed and notarized. What is the process of review prior to signature?
Generally, we draft them up and send them out, but this is a form that was drafted a number of years ago. It's the FAA's form that we've used and they've approved. And so the form, like I said, was drafted a number of years ago, I assume, and I don't know specifically. But, and Regine's not here to talk about that, but she sits down with them, they go over it and they fill it out together. And maybe Chris did. I don't know if Chris did it or not. I'm not a part of that. Like I said, I drafted the form. I don't know what the process is for them to review it together before signatures are acquired.
Well, and thank you for that answer, because it's part of the reason I did not like reach out and say, hey, and an example I'll give you is in section 10, prohibited use, letter B. It says, I think it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth line down, and all events such as materials must be property handled and safely stored. So, properly, that wouldn't come up in a spell check. And it's so close. But the point being is that I knew it was a form that I had read before, not as thoroughly, clearly. But so I just kind of wondered what the procedure was as it relates to that. And if you wanted that feedback, obviously you wouldn't want it today because you can't.
No, that's much appreciated. And like I said, I haven't looked at this form in years. And so it probably would be beneficial to look it over again and see if there's been changes that have happened over the years from other people messing with it.
Okay. I did like it. I thought that it covered really nicely what the use of a hanger was. And like I said, I did review it much more thoroughly this time. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Stewart?
I actually noticed something too that I think is pertinent to our vote tonight, just if we're authorizing this agreement. The second line doesn't have the year filled in, and that seems important for us to fill out that it's 2023. It's stated later in the agreement, but on that second line, it's empty for year. So when we move to authorize, let's have that corrected, I think.
Add that to it.
Thank you.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we authorize you to sign the Lander Municipal Airport hangar lease between the city of Lander and David D. Griffiths.
Second.
Change.
With the addition of 2023 in the second line.
And motion by Councilwoman Stubble, second by Councilman Cox. You all right still? With the change?
Yeah,
Yes.
yes, I am. The other additional change would need to be in number 4, because it says commencing on the exclamation point ST. So that would need to be corrected to the first. Well, again, I'm not being nitpicky because I know this has already been executed and has been a document that we have seen before. So just clarifying it.
That's a good one.
Clarifying.
It looks
We
like a
all
one.
right?
Yeah, it does look like a one.
And you're catching us a little off guard because we didn't produce this. And so.
Right, and I knew that,
It
yeah.
looks to me that probably she sent it to somebody, they didn't fill it in correctly and signed it and brought it in, which is
Correct.
oftentimes what happens in these. And so certainly these updates could be made.
And again, I knew that that was not something that was drafted by Rochelle or any of that sort of thing. So I knew that we were looking at a document that had been recycled. So, thank you.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Call for the question, Councilman Larson.
Yes.
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 Yes. Moving on to item B, new business. Authorize the mayor to sign change order number 9 for Roadhouse Construction, Inc. And the Maven Outdoor Equipment Headquarter Project increase in the contract price in the amount of $57,896. Lance.
Yes, Mayor and Council, thank you. This was a time and materials tracked change to the contract. Want to remind you that all the overage again are going to Maven. We've met our obligations, but this was due to engineering mistake at the beginning of the job where the grade and elevations were not as thought. And so there was some redesign time. This was the solution that we came up to with that was most fair. This was a lot of work between the architectural group, the city, Maven to come up with, and the contractor to come up with a solution that would work. And so this is actual cost of what it took to fix that mistake. So we have everybody else who signed this. I'm happy to answer any more questions you guys have directly about it.
Questions? Councilman Hahn?
I just had a side question. I think I know the answer, but next winter, we're not gonna have to worry about snow removal, right?
No, I mean, this.
I thought so. I thank you.
And the snow removal that's in this was, they were hoping to finish by December with the contract. So the contractor ended up having to provide snow removal for themselves to be able to operate the job. So it was, actual cost to operate that.
And that was a follow-up to my question, Mayor. Oh, did I step out of turn?
Yeah, go ahead, Councilman Cox.
A quick question on this, and I do really like the whole, like the exacts as far as the numbers go. That makes me very happy. It is very interesting to me, and I guess maybe this is more of a education for council about, these are large dollar amount contracts. And these change orders happen fairly frequently within these projects, which we're accustomed to. But at times I wonder, and this one is not as big of a thorn in my side just because I know that it's Maven's responsibility to cover. But I often wonder when there's a mistake made that is not the city of Lander's responsibility, why then do we have to pay it? That's an additional, I looked at the cost for the oversight and the correction from the project management standpoint, and that's a considerable amount of money. Even just that section of it. So I just wonder sometimes, are we protected in any fashion when there's an error made that is not our fault?
So I'll do my best to step around this as best as I can. So with this, there are repercussions, but the repercussions are not within the same contract that we're looking at. So when we reach an agreement with a contractor, engineering firms, architectural groups are not party to those contracts. They aren't signing the same documents. So within those documents, that's not the place to be compensated for an errors and omissions. We reach a separate agreement, which we have with Hein Bond, or we have with other engineering firms on errors and omissions, and they have insurance that covers those mistakes. So that's where you make the decision at that point. Was this above and beyond what we should have expected? So the way that I look at projects, and it's just from past experience, when you're estimating a project and you're not getting into a lot of details, contingencies are in that 15-20% range. You could put a project out, but you should expect a lot of overages if you didn't pay a lot for additional engineering and it was well thought out. As you get into the design more, and you probably should be doing more of your engineering, that should go down significantly. So I like to see our contracts be 5% or less That means that we did a good job during review. If we're, in that range, but when we're talking like the upcoming tank and pump station job, that's a 10 million job. I mean, a $10 million overall, 5% is still a pretty significant chunk of money. But that's also, 300 pages of design manuals that we went through over and over. You're teaming up multiple different disciplines from HVAC to electrical. Like through that project, you would expect things not to jive perfectly. But if we paid for the engineering at the level to be perfect, you're kind of wasting those construction dollars too. So there's a balance there. But when a mistake is made that should be followed up on, we tend to recommend that should happen. And so in this case, that's a mistake that shouldn't have happened. So there are ways to look at that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Okay, can I get a motion to approve? Authorize mayor to sign change order number 9 for Road House Construction, Inc.
I'll move to authorize the mayor to sign change order 9 for Grote House Construction, Inc. And the Maven Outdoor Equipment Headquarters Project, increase in the contract price in the amount of $57,896.
Second.
That motion by Councilman Martin, second by Councilman Cox. Any other questions, concerns? Call for the vote. Jay Han?
Yes.
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 Yes. All right, moving on to item C. Authorize the mayor to sign amendment to owner engineer agreement amendment number 2 for additional services performed by engineers increase and agreements in the amount of the sum $236,000. Lance.
Yes, Mayor and Council, I guess this is kind of continued conversation from what we were talking about. This is the engineering contract for that tank and pump station job, and the increase is to finish the job and then provide full-time construction observation out in the field, do what's required for some of the monies that we have, like water development, require that staffing. We also had to put this project out for bid a second time and make some adjustments along the lines of fixing some of the things that we discovered or adjusting them for lower prices. So I know Dan made the comment that no money's free. He's exactly right. But this overall project, including engineering, is covered by state money. So the AML, along with the Wyoming water development monies, are more than the bid plus the engineering that we're asking to amend tonight. So that kind of covers items C, D, and E, puts us in a really good spot. But again, we could have change orders and overages, which means that we'll be into our enterprise accounts when that happens. We're right at that limit. But that's pretty amazing to have a $10 million job that's not coming directly out of our funds, but also is coming out of some of the programs the state set up for us.
Question? Can I get a motion to authorize the mayor to sign amendment owner engineer agreement amendment number 2 for additional service performed by the engineers, increased agreement in the amount in the sum of $236,000 even. So
moved.
got a motion by Councilman Larson, get a second.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Cox. Call for the question, Councilman Larson.
Yes.
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 Yes, all right, item D. Authorize the mayor to sign an agreement between owner and contract High Country Construction, Inc. The construction contract, for the Lander High Pressure Water Line System Upgrade Phase 3. Lance.
Yes, Mayor and Council, I'll do D and E together. So D is the agreement. And so we've gotten all the performance bonding, payment bonds, everything back so that we can enter into an agreement. So that's D with High Country, which is great to have a local contractor win this job just down the road. We had 2 bidders on this job. Last time we had 3. Patrick Construction was our bidder who didn't bid the job the second time. So it was a Montana Civil was the name of the firm out of Montana, and then High Country. So the bid was, I think it was what, $50,000 in a $9.5 million estimate between the 2 contractors, which is just so close. I think we're getting a good price on this. So recommending that we enter into this agreement and then that we also issue the notice to proceed so that we can move forward with this contract and get construction started.
Okay. Questions? Can I get a motion?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
Motion by Councilman Hahn, second by Councilwoman White, to authorize the mayor to sign agreement between the owner of High Country Construction Inc. for the construction contract for the land of high water pressure system at grade phase 3. Call for the question, Councilman Hahn.
Yes.
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 Yes. And moving on, let's just talk about item E. Do we need more discussion on that?
Move to authorize the mayor to sign notice to proceed for High Country Construction Inc. for the Lander High Pressure Water System upgrades phase 3.
A second,
Second.
motion by Councilman Larson, second by Councilman Cox. Call for the question, Councilman Larson.
Yes.
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 Yes. Item F, John, you want to read it?
Yep, let me find it again. There we go. Up jumped the devil. Okay. Just want to let's see, add resolution 1290 exempting the Museum of the American West property from the open container provisions of the city ordinance 2-2-12.
Okay, thank you. Rochelle?
There we go. In order to keep things consistent, this goes back to the conversation that Adam had mentioned a couple weeks ago about how our Muni code is interpreted and what's required for an open container. Museum of the American West is not entirely owned by the city of Lander. There was a catering permit application turned in today for an event on the 27th. And this open container goes along with that, allowing them to have beverages, alcoholic beverages at their event on the 27th. And I know that Jill Skiba is present and she is the one that is having the event, she and a co-host. So if anyone has any questions.
Have any questions? Pretty cut and dry. Can I get a motion to authorize the mayor to sign that?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I actually, it's not a question, but I have a language addition for us
Okay.
to consider. So in the now therefore be resolved,
Okay.
we're missing the action or the verb. So I would suggest that, I think we all know what it means, but it should probably be spelled out here. So I would offer that we should change the now therefore be resolved by the governing body of the city of Lander, the Museum of the American West, 1445 West Main Street, Lander, Wyoming. Here's the addition, shall be exempt from the open container provisions of city ordinance 2-2/12 from 2 to 5 p.m. on May 27th, 2023. That's standard to what I've seen with our other resolutions exempting properties.
Make a motion.
And I move that with the addition of that language, that we move approval of resolution 1290.
I get a second.
I'll second that amendment.
Motion by Councilman Stubble, to amend the motion. Second by Councilwoman White. I call for the question. Councilman Larson.
Yes.
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 Yes. So there's no other business come before the council. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I would like to I just have a question, just based on something that you
Go
had
ahead.
mentioned earlier about coming to you, and I wanted to take a moment to collect my thoughts, and on Monday of last week, Councilman Hahn, Josh Hahn and I were going to come and talk to you specifically about an issue that we had in relation to personnel. So I can appreciate chain of command, because I think that that's also important. And I do want to have an opportunity. I don't know if we can put it on an agenda or if we talk about it at the work session, but he did also provide these pictures. And I know there's an opportunity for some community service folks that need to earn those things that there's they need to contribute back to our community. And so I don't know if there's a way that we could incorporate that into this, where we could utilize that as an asset to our community, so that we could actually solve maybe what the underlying issue, not personnel, but
But we've been shorthanded down there. and I
Yeah,
totally agree with you on that. And I would like
absolutely.
to get with the department head over there and give him a chance to get things fixed and straightened around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and like I said, there is community service help, so I totally agree. I
Yeah.
talked to Sally the other day about having some of the kids come down. I know Kevin was good about using them also, so.
Right.
Let me have a chance to visit with Jason on it and Lance, and then we can figure this out, because I'd like this stuff to come to me, is what I'm saying, Josh. If I can take it to the department heads, give them an opportunity to correct the issues instead of bringing it to the public, you know what I mean?
Right, and I agree with the chain of command as well. But I don't believe you hired me. I believe I was voted in by the public, and I believe that they are my chain of command.
That's fine.
And so, you know, if there's a problem, I don't like doing things behind doors. I like doing it
I'm
where the
not saying-
public can hear.
Can we talk
What's that?
afterwards, you and I?
That's what I'm saying.
I know, but I can say it here, but
I don't talk behind closed doors. If we have to say something, I do it in front of the public.
okay, well, let's do it then. If you did something and didn't get done at this state, and somebody went to your uppers and not come to you first, wouldn't you like to have a chance to correct it?
It happens all the time. Take criticism. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
Well, but I just want to give my guys a chance. I respect my department heads, and I want to give them a chance to correct the issues and problems that arise if I know about them.
If
I
the
can
city's
help.
paying for them to do a job, they should do their job, correct?
They should, yes. but
So
give them a chance. We
does
could
it
have a
all
big chance.
rely on part-time work to do that job?
Sometimes it does when you don't have a manpower.
Because you're running shorthanded?
And so sometimes we need to figure it out.
Okay, so if there's people needing to do community service, they're around all the time.
And we just gotta get a hold of the Sally down at the courthouse and arrange it. And without Jason just stepping up and taking over, then I just like to give my department heads a chance to fix issues before they get blown out of
Right.
proportion.
Well, you know, your employees are being paid by the city, the public, you're being paid by the public. And if they have a complaint for me, I'm gonna bring it here and I'm gonna make it vocal in front of everybody, not behind closed doors where it's hidden.
There's nothing hidden.
It's
just-
well, it's not in front of everybody.
How it is now.
Right, and that's the way it should be.
Okay.
That's called transparency. And that's what I got into this position for.
Sounds good.
Mayor, may I just make a
Go
quick
ahead.
comment on personnel? We are a little bit restricted on what we can discuss about personnel specifically. So we do need to be careful about personnel because we could get ourselves in trouble if we publicly when we come to like a solution of something of this nature, I think it speaks to, I mean, you guys have been telling us you've been shorthanded, can't get applicants. We, you know, this is this is the result of that. And so I think if we can be, you know, solution focused and have those really good conversations, then it's helpful long term, but definitely personnel, we do have to be careful so we don't get ourselves in a sling. That would be bad.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn?
A
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Cox. Second by, that was you,
Oh, yeah.
Councilman Hahn.
Work session.
To adjourn the meeting, call for the question, Councilman Hahn.
Yes.
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 Yes. Meeting adjourned. Go right into a work session. There's there's no action items on any of this stuff. This is discussion only. So to come out as action on mine, so just let you know.
Are we moving right into the
Yes.
filing clerk job description?
Yes, let's move right into that. Okay, Rachel.
So this job description was created off of a template of an existing one that, well, it's no longer existing. It was an older one to allow for someone to come in as an hourly employee, really no more than 19 hours a week to assist with photocopying, filing, converting records to digital formats, things of that nature. It's my understanding the planning department and zoning and some of those departments have a lot of that type of work to do that some of us never have the time to get to. Another example would be at some point, I would love to start using the Wyoming Archive Services. Kind of talked about it before, but it takes time to convert all the minutes and everything to digital formats. So this person would be contemplated to maybe do some of that stuff, not just for me, but for zoning and planning and the building department and whomever had a need.
Questions? Councilman White?
So thank you, Mayor. So I understand this is a part-time position, very part-time. Is this meant to be an indefinite part-time or something of, predicted to be X amount of months, years until we're caught up on some of this backlog? Or do you anticipate this being a more permanent ongoing position?
And I apologize, I was trying to find the job description. I believe the way it's drafted is that it would be part-time regular, which means consistent. Certainly, we could look at making it temporary, no more than 6 months. That would be something the council would like to do.
A quick question,
Go ahead.
Yeah. Is this the position that we utilized with job?
It's my
Corps.
understanding that Job Corps, we did have some Job Corps personnel several years ago that did this position, yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Stoll?
thank you. Clerk Fontaine, you have mentioned you're amenable to being 6 months, 9 months, time limited, if that's something that we directed, but I'm curious to hear your perspective. Is there a need for it to be not time limited? And should we leave that wide open? I guess something for us to consider, but I'd like to hear what your preference would be.
And that's a difficult question. Regine was a person who really was looking for someone to help with this, and certainly there is a need. How long of duration, I'm not sure, because I don't know what her backlog is. I know what mine looks like. 6 months might be a really good place to start as a temporary position and then go from there, see what the need looks like. So I apologize, Councilmember Stubble, that I have no more in-depth information. Regine isn't available for me to ask.
No, that's right. That's helpful to hear. Thank you. And a follow-up, if I may,
Go ahead.
often when we look at adding a position, this is an existing position we've had. Is that what I understand that? Let me back up. Often we look at it, the budgetary impact before we see the job description. I feel like we're seeing the job description here before we talk about budgeting for it. Is this an amendment to the budget we're considering for next fiscal year? Is that also a Regine question?
That's
Well, it's
it.
a Shari question.
They were kind of missing. Okay.
And she was aware that the job description was being drafted at those employees' requests, but she didn't say anything one way or the other about it, so.
Councilman White?
So thanks for that, Rachel. I appreciate that. Obviously, there's a couple of big things that the council needs more information on before it actually gets voted on, those being discussed. I think for me, although I know this can make it challenging in terms of narrowing the job market, I think my preference would be for some kind of time bound, as you and other department heads believe, to at least get a sense of it. I'm still a little cautious about creating a position that is of an indeterminate nature for an indeterminate amount of time. What's a reasonable time frame for this backlog and catching up, and then just maybe it's amending it, maybe to less or more hours, or maybe it's terminating it or something, but that would be my preference rather than having a indeterminate.
Okay,
I think if you go back and look at the record rooms back here, you can see we're really short. There's
Yeah,
stuff that hasn't been filed
sure.
since the forties. So it's kind of neat to go back there and look at all that stuff, but I don't want to be the one that has to file all of it. So,
I also just looking at who would supervise, just because there's an option.
Mhm.
So who do we think that supervisory role would be? 'Cause
it could be all three of those people, depending on what type of work
I
this
see.
person was doing.
Gotcha, that makes sense. So if they're working for you, that you would be overseeing that, okay. And then treasurer Shari would be
Mhm.
overseeing that. Okay, that makes sense.
questions? Really?
So I will, with council's direction, gather more information, redraft two options, and we will put it back on a work session for further discussion. Does that sound
That work?
appropriate?
That work?
One more quick
ahead.
question. Does it have to be during the 8 to 5 when you're available?
I think it should if you're working back with records.
I would not want anyone back there without me being there. I know that most of the information, personnel records, things of that nature, they're locked and the keys are limited. I do work 6 to 5 or whenever we go home.
8
So
o'clock.
so that might allow for
Yeah.
some flexibility of hours if that were beneficial to someone, but it would be my preference that happen unless the person, I think there's some flexibility. If there's a thought that they could do some of it at home, as long as those records were not confidential. I'm
Right.
reluctant always to let any sort of original records leave this building
Sure.
for good reason, but.
I just know when you talk about filing and you talk about, what candidate pool you're reaching for. If you have after hours or a flexible work schedule, you're going to get a better pool of applicants that would be more qualified potentially. Doing it
agree.
as a second income or something of that nature.
I agree.
It's what they're going to be filing is sensitive information. And so not sensitive, but
Some of it will be,
Right.
some of it would be,
just general. Yeah.
right. Building permits, if anyone wants to know if there's a building permit for lot X or Y or Z or an electrical permit, all of that is subject to public information.
Okay, moving on, next discussion item is potential changes for Lift and Lita award. I thought somebody would be here, but are there two here? Oh, I
Yeah,
can't see you.
should bring them up to the hot seat.
You want to come up here to this chair, guys?
Up to,
Just introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are.
Is that better? Okay, so I'm Eric Andrews. I'm a member of the LIDA Board of Directors. Also serve as LIDA's liaison to the LIFT Committee. We do have Marilyn Fisher here as well, who's part of the LIFT Committee. So we're here to listen to your input and feedback. Some of the things that we've discussed on the LIDA Board and with the LIFT Committee is that the LIFT Committee was designed to manage a program designed by council and LIDA. In order to disperse the economic development tax funds. So I'm kind of working with LIDA to help keep them on track to spend those dollars as we've directed them to make their judgments on the grantees and applicants based on the rules that they've been given. So the LIDA is interested in working with council to determine if that's the program we still want to do, if we want to make changes to how those dollars are dispersed. So, and we're trying to keep the lift committee on track. So that the city council and mayor and Lita can make changes to that program as deemed necessary. So we're looking for feedback from you guys on what you want to see, if you like the way Lyft is operating as it is, if you have questions on how that is, we're certainly here to answer those questions.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Andrews, for being here. Thank you, Marilyn. So I'll start with the apology because I missed a meeting in March where I believe Lita and Lyft came, or council had a discussion around this process. And I have pulled up the notes that were sent out from Regine on March 29th saying there's some documentation of 6, 7, 8 kind of bullet points of things that were discussed in that meeting. And so my assumption was that we had discussed some feedback. Those ideas went out. I was hoping Lita and Lyft would digest them and sort of come back and tell us, yeah, no, maybe here's how it could look. Not a great idea. So I'm a little confused by what we're doing right now. Are you looking for additional ideas or further refinement of that list? I'm kind of trying to place set.
Yeah, I think I can speak to that. if
Councilwoman.
I may.
Go ahead.
Correct, that conversation happened, and ideally what was to then follow was that each of us would individually respond to Regine with our thoughts about that. And there's a bit of a hiccup there. I think one of our challenges for us 7 is rightfully so, we don't want to step on the toes of Lita and Lyft. But yet we are ultimately responsible for the taxpaying dollars and how they're distributed. And many of us have concerns about the extent or amount or, is the process the right thing, et cetera. And what I would ask us to approach this conversation with right now is that it is incumbent upon us to provide the structure of what we want for these things. So if it's a dollar limit, different kinds of programs, different evaluation criteria, that is our responsibility to clarify that so that Lita and Lyft have the guidelines to follow. And so we're not shortchanging them. We depend on them using their judgment to evaluate the applicants according to the criteria that we've established. So I think what is on us right now is to be more clear in providing what are those criteria and whether, so that, the things that come to my mind is, do we want to limit the dollar threshold of a grant award? Do we want to limit the percent of a grant award? Those may or may not be the same thing. I would argue that they're not the same thing. We had expressed interest in the possibility of providing a loan that's slightly less than what banks would offer. In our conversation with Andy, Councilman Larson and I found out there's some challenges from that. And Ms. Fisher has also explained some of the challenge with that. But I think there are also potential ways to explore greater financial review of applicants so that the likelihood of default is less. So again, those are things we as a council would need to provide the direction expectation to Lita and Lyft about.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just a clarifying point.
Go ahead.
So what I'm hearing is that there was we discussed this in March, it's unfinished, and now we are revisiting it, and we're going to talk about the ideas that came out of the March meeting some more.
Yes.
Okay.
Councilman Hahn.
Well, what I was going to say is, if we have a failure, the failure is going to be losing the half cent. That I think concerns all of us. But one thing, a constituent brought this up, and I kind of like this idea. The money, it goes out. We don't hear anything from anybody. Nobody knows anything. And this person brought up, it'd be nice to have an update from people that have received money, how they're doing, maybe even a presentation to the people. So maybe people could understand, something besides taxpayers' money going out and nobody knows anything at all. And so I think I think that would be a really good idea. No matter what happens here, I think that this would be a great idea because ultimately, we don't want the half cent to fail. And I've received an earful of people that aren't happy. So, and you can't please everybody. I mean, we know that, but I want it to work. And maybe this would help, get some stories back, get some, it's like the signs with the, 1 cent out here. People get money, they go away and nobody knows what's going on. So I'd love to see that.
May I respond to that?
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, that's something that Lita has specifically, and we're working with Lyft, that we've recognized. So Lita is well aware that there may be a perception within the public that the economic tax dollars are not getting spent appropriately. However, we are identifying those wins. And we are currently putting together a campaign to help show those wins. We realize that it's not just going to rest on Lita's shoulders. It's not just going to rest on council's shoulders or Lyft or the PAC that helped get it passed to begin with. It's going to be a group effort here. So yeah, we're actively working to put those stories together because we have had some really good wins. And there's a lot of people don't understand what goes on behind the scenes to make these awards, what kind of jobs they're actually developing. What they are committing to the local economy. We had this conversation last night in the Lita meeting, in which Councilmember Cox was there. If one of these projects puts together 4 new positions within the community, that's 4 tax-paying individuals. They live here 365 days a year. That adds a lot to your economy. So there are wins out there like that, and we are actively working to push that. We are aware there's a deadline on this. That tax is coming up for renewal in less than 18 months now. So we do want to start sharing that information, and we do have wins just to be excited about.
Yeah, I think it helps sell this. I really do.
Yeah.
Thank you,
absolutely.
Mayor.
Thank you. Oh, over there. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Eric, just jumping on what Dan was saying there. We had, when we had the meeting with Andy, he had given us some feedback of as far as, who has received a grant, how much they'd received and so on and so forth. And I agree with Dan 100%. Boy, it would sure be nice to have a report card and like you're saying, show the wins, also show the losses, see where we went down the hole there and see what we can do to improve there. But I think that the report back is really critical on this. So would certainly like to see that.
Yeah, and I'll speak a little about that as well. One of the things that we haven't necessarily built in after we award these grants is a reporting mechanism back from the awardees. That's something that we're definitely looking at and we want to see. We want to see these people not only investing into the economy through getting the grant to help them provide these positions, but also to support Lita and Lyft and the council and the dollars that they receive. So we are asking our awardees now. We're actually in the active stage of doing that to get feedback, appropriate feedback on how they've used those dollars so that we can report it in an accurate manner. We have had some wins. We've certainly had some disappointments as well. So yeah, we want to share that with everyone. Good. And if I may, I'll speak a little bit. In the previous meeting, Monty had a lot to talk about on the chain of command. One of the things I spoke to originally is there has been a lot of communication directly with the Lyft committee. But like I stated, the Lyft committee itself is tasked with administering the program that we place before them. So if there needs to be changes to the evaluation matrix, to the program in general, if there needs to be a different way that the funds are spent, that should be a collaboration between council and Lita. So maybe we should establish a more direct line of communication, whether it be with me or another representative of Lita. So I know Andy is the head of Lyft committee right now. But some of you may not be aware, his term expires after this round that'll be ending in the next couple of weeks. So we definitely need to get any programmatic changes if we want to implement some sort of reporting mechanism by the awardees. That should be something that we build in between the council and LEDA level into the program, and then have Lyft go administer that. So that's something we're looking at. We would encourage all of y'all to reach out to us. LEDA is a relatively small board at the moment. And there's a group of individuals that are trying to do a lot. So that's why I'm here tonight. So, but yeah, we definitely, if y'all want to see changes, that's speaking to you, Julia, just a little bit. That's part of why something's not been done in the past month. And there's still been some questions going around. And it's because not everybody's been involved in the conversation. So we're working to change that. And that's why I'm here tonight.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I appreciate that very much. I think that I would support your ask that we go to LEDA directly, and instead of, Lyft committee has an immense amount of work to be done. And so to be fielding our communication and questions is adding to their plates in a way that I like having that clear line of, I guess we're using the word command or communication named tonight for us to all remember. I think it's been difficult because we've had a lot of changing liaisons from Lyft to LEDA. And so I appreciate that you've thought about that that's what your ask is. And I think that we should honor that too, and let Lyft committee members be free to spend all their time looking at an immense amount of information and weighing those applications instead of dealing with us as well.
Yeah, and that's, like I'll say again, LEDA's a group that created this whole process. I mean, they worked with council. We designed it. We presented it to you guys. You approved it. We helped create the Lyft committee to administer the program. And yes, we have had a lot of turnover, a lot of different liaisons, a lot of people bouncing around. Hopefully that's going to stop for a while, and we'll continue this thing all the way through the next election cycle to see if it gets passed again and see if we can communicate it or continue it as it is. But yeah, so I think if we want to make changes to the program, if we want to see new evaluation steps added, if we want to see new reporting, if we want to see a new model or limits put on what people can ask for, I think we communicate that to LEDA, and then they can bring you something to put together and vote on.
I think I'll just add one more thing. I think one thing, just talking to a lot of different people, I think there's a lot of definitions of what economic development is. And what some people think is economic development, it may not look so good in different eyes. So I think that one of the problems we have is that, what is the definition? So anyway, thank you.
Mr. Thank you. I appreciate, especially when you described it as it's the Lyft committee's responsibility to administer the program. And I hope that helps us understand it's incumbent upon us to design the program. And I think all of us have expressed various concerns from our own point of view, speaking with constituents about that. So I would love, if it's okay, to try to get a little granular about some of the concerns we have expressed. We may not get to a specific shared among the 7 of us, but at least to get it narrower. And I would love to continue that conversation with LEDA after hearing from all of us. So if I may, I'd love to ask basically the 7 of us some questions about that so that it can be better represented to the LEDA group. So first one being is there a dollar limit of grant amount that you would be more comfortable with in terms of how the funds are awarded?
Go ahead.
Mayor, if I may. Yes, I think that a dollar limit for a grant would be a preference of mine. Just looking at a couple of options there. Now, within our economic development tax rubric, if you notice that from Regine previously, and we've also had this previously, we do have kind of the plan spelled out as to what we want to put our money towards. But so I don't think that each one of those areas would be the same necessarily limit. So when I talk about that, I talk about community improvements, and I talk about like events, talk about small businesses, local businesses, those types of things. So really coming up with, do we then say that grant amount should across the board be a maximum of this amount for any project or any ask that we receive? And so we've talked about that here. We've talked about loans. I'm not in favor of loans because I think that then somebody has to track that. And I think that's, Shari also mentioned that, I believe at the last council meeting, that that becomes problematic. And I take that, and I appreciate Andy Gramlich's position on that as well, but I think Shari being our treasurer, acknowledging that in fact could be a little bit of a disaster. So I do like the idea of limiting the grant amount.
So do you have a sense then of, one, would you prefer a total grant amount limit across the board? Or if you wanted individual, would it work better for you to take time, think about that on the different funding buckets, so to speak,
Mhm.
and provide that information to me to pass on to Lita?
Well, I would like to pass it on to Lita since I sit on the Lita board.
Right, we just have to be careful about how many of us are in that conversation or it becomes a public meeting for that.
Right, which would
Yeah.
make sense because I have to be there anyway. So yeah, I'm happy to relay that as well. But I think that, for me, what I think it's Goshen County, correct me if I'm wrong, is they cap it at 10,000.
10,000.
I think that, I don't know that that's reasonable at this ask. We can't be all things to everyone, obviously.
Yep.
And we do have to have priorities. And so I think what I would like to do is spend a little bit of time looking at the matrix as far as where those priorities are our largest priorities or our top priorities, and then look at that funding for myself. Or to
Yeah,
kind of look at that a
great.
little bit differently.
Great. So I'd love to hear from other council members. What's your perspective on? Do you have a concept of where your threshold would want to be?
Well, if I may, Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman White, I think I'd go back to before we get into the details of how that cap could look, go back to the existential question of cap or no cap. I'm actually not in favor of a cap. I'll use a dramatic example, but what if we had an application that's coming in, they are asking for a large amount of money, they're gonna bring 100 jobs, and we're gonna say, great, we'll give you 20 grand for that, building XYZ, whatever it's gonna be. Like, no, I think that if we have a high quality application and it meets, it's the top of the grade in the rubric, and it has, phenomenal economic development potential for us, I don't want us to limit our investment in that when it could have a lot of impact in the community. I think that a cap looks at us spreading out quantity rather than quality, and I'd rather see high quality applications funded, frankly, to the fullest that we can. So I'm a no vote on the cap.
Great. How about others?
I'd like to see us put more towards events coming
Okay,
in.
so that's a totally separate topic.
It is.
So hang on to that thought, but specifically, and this is part of our challenge, we start going all over the
Yeah.
board. So I
Let's
want to try to
finish, but-
provide some structure, having been part of these conversations leading up to, and I'd like to continue that. And I see the need for that continued structure. So
Yeah, I really like Julia's thought on the cap there. I see where, and as I was looking at some of the awards and so forth, I thought, geez, how come somebody's, up here to $160,000 and others are, at $5,000 and but it makes sense there, Julia, if you've got something that's that has the potential of doing great things, you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot and say, okay, here's $5,000, here's $20,000, live it up, we're here to help. When in reality, we're no help at all.
Councilman Dan Hahn?
I don't really agree with that. I understand it, but there's a lot of young people out there trying to build things and if you have a huge job that needs 100,000 or 150,000 or whatever, I think it takes away from a lot of the smaller people. I would much rather see a cap at, 50, 75,000 or whatever and try to spread it out. I'm not sure how long this is going to last, to tell you the truth. And I really would like to, I'd like to see the little people. Most people that are gonna get involved with something big like you're talking about, they've got capital anyway. It's not, I mean, it's a bonus to get the money. They were gonna do it anyway, I think, but the young people that are really striving, I think the smaller amounts of money affect them a lot more. So anyway,
Yeah,
that's
thanks.
mine.
Yep. And how about? Yeah,
I would.
yep.
Councilman
How
Hahn.
about-
I agree with the cap. I think if somebody's gonna want that money and they're really actually wanting it for the correct things, they're gonna utilize it to the best they can, so I'm afraid that if you don't limit the amount that you're giving out, then it's affecting the smaller people.
Do you have a sense of what your preferred cap would be?
I do, yeah, like 40, 50,000 and spread it out a little.
Thank you. And just to be transparent, because I'm up here as well, my own preferences, I would like to see a cap. As I looked at some of the dollar amounts that folks have gotten, I think it's astonishing. And again, those larger endeavors, they are established and have the ability to have loans, lines of credit, et cetera, that can help them. And I think it's a way to get more projects in our community that can likewise be a good economic driver and flywheel for getting that going. So thanks. I mean, and here's part of our challenge. We have very different perspectives among all of us.
Councilman
Yeah.
Larson.
Yeah.
Quick comment here. I think, looking at some of the questions that they use, we talk about the little guy being blown out because the big boys are coming in here and sucking out the money. But I think that the way I read these questions, that if the small applicant comes in and has a more focused objective and I mean, he's got just as much chance of the money as what the big boys do. Am I correct there, Eric? There's not a prohibition again, the small individual. They've got just as much right for the money as the other guys do. And I think that you go through these questions and they ask, do you have financial history, are you able to handle this on your own, and geez, yeah, well, then their score on the rubric goes down considerably, if they can handle it on their own. I just don't think that just because you're asking for big money means that you're given preferential treatment.
So thank you. I think a follow-up question to that is, initially the rubric was that no more than 50% of a proposal would be funded, and that's morphed a little bit over time. There's some that have been funded at 100%. Where are we at as a governing body about percent of match to a project that's going on?
Just prior to answering that question, did you give a dollar amount for what your suggestion for a cap would be?
I don't have a dollar amount yet in my
Yeah.
head. I need to look a little bit more at the different
Mhm.
criteria again about where those would be.
That sounds good.
So in terms of percent max, and again, it's a reimbursement fund, but do folks have a sense of where your comfort level is with 20%, 50%, 100%? I'll start that one. For myself, I would like to see no more than 50% match. And for me, that would literally be a dollar amount contributed by the organization. I think that's been another part of the conversation that gets interpreted different. We all want folks to have skin in the game. Agreed with that. I think how we define skin in the game is open a little bit to interpretation. For myself, I think the cleanest way is that the business actually has to provide the 50%, meaning some folks have interpreted it's like, well, they've expanded their building in order to be able to house the equipment that they're asking for in the grant, and that counts as skin in the game. To me, I'd actually like to see it literally for the exact request being made for that. So that's my stake in it.
So I'm buying a new widget maker that's gonna cost me $100,000. You want me to have $50,000 there to apply
That's-
to that?
That's
widget
yours.
maker,
Yep.
Not necessarily be in real estate or anything else.
Yep.
as Part of that.
So for me, instead of making decisions based on anecdotal information, it would be nice to know of those successes, did they have 50% or more towards what their ask was? Or maybe their ask was $100,000, but they already invested 500 and they didn't necessarily put that in the application or whatever the case may be. So of the total applicants, the ones that had some skin in the game, the 50%, have they been the successful recipients? And vice versa, the ones who have not, have they not been as successful? So I'm going to guess we have that data somewhere that could be collected. It would be nice to know if that is a reliable, is that a reliable number or data that we need to make that decision on for me? If it matters to success and economic development long-term in our community. I get why you would want to. I mean, that makes sense, but I'm not sure that it's pertinent to what our goal is of economic development.
I think people have to have money involved. The higher percentage of free money, it seems like the responsibility goes down. People have to have enough money in the game to be responsible. You have to. If people don't, there's no incentive. And there's a lot of people that are like that. If it's free, they're not going to put out like the people that have some money in the game.
What would your preferred threshold be then?
It'd have to be somewhere around 50%. You have to have enough in it to have drive.
Mhm.
And definitely drive is going away these days.
Can I ask a question of clarification too, Missy, on Mayor? So for an example, Wild Glass LLC did a request and was funded. Their request was 107,465. And I think this amount of funding kind of caused some pause for myself, I would guess for others as well. And that they were funded at 100% of request, but that wasn't, so are you suggesting that of their request, you want them to have 50% or of their total project amount? Because it's going to be more than 50% of the project amount, more often than not, right? Okay.
So just to clarify, when an applicant comes, because we currently do have a match. And I believe it's 50%. So when they bring a project cost as part of their application, say it's, $100,000 is their total project cost, they're only requesting 50,000. And more times than not, they're not even going to get awarded that 50%. So a lot of these applicants, when they get an award, it's going to actually be less than 50% of the total project cost. So that's part of the application process. They're not coming in with $100,000 project asking for 100,000.
And that's already in the rubric.
Yeah, they know
They-
that's in the application.
Right.
That doesn't stop them from increasing their project cost. So we're going off the numbers they provide, but we do our due diligence with financial information. which is a lot of times proprietary and classified. So, but it's not like we're just trusting them and saying, oh, well, you said it was 100 grand, so it's 100 grand. It's not that simple.
Have you had a failure? In all of the projects that you have had? What's the percentage of people that do you have a percentage? I mean, I'm not trying to press you. I mean, if you don't have it, that's fine.
No, I don't have those numbers. in front
But
of me.
there's been failures in the,
Yeah, there's been some that have not provided, I think what we thought they would when they were awarded.
and did they have a percentage in the game enough to keep them around or?
Yeah, so, and you have to define failure too. So we have had some awardees that never got awarded because they couldn't put their skin in the game. They couldn't come up with the skin in the game. So that money goes back into the pot
Okay.
for future awardees. So to my knowledge, and like I said, I've been this liaison for about 3 weeks now. And we're working on changing some things, but to my knowledge, I'm not aware of an award that's been made where somebody didn't have skin in the game. Like
Okay.
an award paid out. Sorry, let me clarify that.
And they're still operating, all the people, or do you even have that information?
I don't, I have some information from people I talk to within the community as well, just like you. I get a
Mhm.
lot of feedback. And so I'm aware of some that have not succeeded, or sometimes outside the control of that individual or lift or leader or council or anybody.
Mhm.
So there have been some instances like that that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
if I may. I think that raises a point that I was thinking about saying at the beginning of this that I'm going to say now instead. And so Missy, to step aside and step back from appreciate the very pointed questions you're trying to get us to say opinions on, because otherwise we'd be in a little bit of a mess here. But I approach this process with thinking, if it's not broke, why are we fixing it? And I think that, I don't want to say it's entirely, there might be some tweaks to be made. I don't know that we have the information about what tweaks need to be made based on what issues have been experienced. And so I wonder, at the risk that we've talked about this once and now we're talking about it again, I wonder if this is not the time for the conversation until we have an evaluation that I hear Lita is working on, thank you, about what money has been dispersed, what organizations, what businesses have bought the equipment, hired the jobs, done what they said they're going to do, how many have returned the funds. I don't know how to rate what are we trying to address, right? I need to know what's not working before we address the solution to what's not working. And it feels a little bit speculative and anecdotal to me right now. And that we have varying degrees of I talked to somebody who was upset about this thing, but I want to see the numbers. How much money out, how many businesses, how many reported back that they did the thing that we funded them to do. And if it's, a majority are not buying equipment, hiring the jobs, then gosh, yeah, let's dig into this and address why. If we have 1 or 2 outliers, I don't know why we need to look at a system upgrade. When it might just be a few tweaks around the edges instead. So it feels to me like there's not enough information for this conversation.
I hear that and I appreciate that perspective. And at the same time, it has come up among us in small group conversations as a governing body that we have questions, concerns because of constituent questions that have come to us. So I wouldn't say it's broken. I think there's room for improvement. And that's what I'm hoping our conversation can have so that we can continue the conversation with Lita. I mean, I've been part of that from the get-go. I'd love to continue those conversations. And so that's what I'm trying to do is help me identify where the points of concerns are, possible suggestions for that, so I can continue the conversation and build a better mousetrap. I don't think it's broken. Agreed. I think there's room for improvement. And I'd like to do that because I'm hearing from us that there is room for improvement by and large. You may not be exactly in that same spot. Some of us have been in that same spot. I think there's room for improvement and I'd like to make those improvements.
Councilman Hahn.
I just want to make one more comment. To tell you the truth, I think this is awesome. This is the most information that we have really not been able to really engage, and to tell you the truth, it's been really great talking to you, and I've learned more just now than it maybe it's a timing, or maybe our questions were a little, maybe even out of order, but the thing is we have not been able to engage like this tonight, and I want to thank you. I really do, because it has been good. I mean, I know it's hard to be on the, sitting there where you're at, but the thing is we've been kind of blowing in the wind too. And this was very informative. So thank you very much.
I can also, Mayor,
ahead.
echo, I look at the second quarter recommendations from LEDA and the amount of work that's gone into the matrix, the amount of work that has gone into reviewing those applications. And I think the biggest sticking point, and I would agree, there's sort of this balance of, is it broken? Is it not broken? I don't necessarily think it's broken because, right, no, yeah, exactly.
No.
Yeah, I think where the sticking point right now is, should there be a cap? I think that has been the biggest source of questions from constituents is, if you look at it, even though it's within the matrix and the percentage of the scoring and how it's rated, which I think is it's pretty phenomenal based on what we have. It also leads me to the ask that we're having of a voluntary board is astronomical.
Yeah.
So what we now need to do is do some type of a marketing campaign that says, hey, these are our wins, which is what we need, so that we can continue taxpayers to appreciate what the half cent has gone towards. But then also now we need to collect the data that shows, yes, so this is not a part-time board type of a position. And I'm certainly not, maybe I am plugging a little bit, look in the future of potentially utilizing some of these funds to maybe help pay for a position that would then be able to have these really in-depth conversations about what our goals are for economic development, what is our, overall broad scope of that in our community, and how do we want to get there? So I think while it might not be broken, there might be ways to utilize some of this half cent to do those types of things as well.
One other thing. This is just bigger than this. I mean, we're talking, if we have a failure, we're talking airports, we're talking this is big. So what we're talking about here is just a piece of the puzzle. But if we lose that half cent, it is going to be huge. It is going to be huge. It's not just this, to tell you the truth, the economic development, it's great, but we'll be under the gun because the airport will be at risk, and that's going to be big. So, this is a lot bigger than what we've got going here. So thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. So has this helped Eric any to take back?
Let me just leave a couple
Go
of
ahead.
ending comments, starting with Julia's comments up front. Why are we back here again? I wanted to comment, it's not like LEDA hasn't talked about this stuff. It was certainly, as soon as the first lift meeting that I walked into, it was certainly on their mind, because they were focused more on what they needed to do to appease council and to help do this. And so that's where all this kind of like, let's get Lyft back on track initially, and let's get LEDA more involved. And, we're the ones that designed it. A lot of the people that designed it aren't even sitting around the LEDA table anymore. So there's kind of some new people in town. We're trying to keep things going. This is the first cycle that this tax has been around. So it's been a learning process for everybody, including all of you sitting up there. So we are talking about it. Some of the things that you guys brought up tonight, the cap, that's certainly something that we've discussed both at Lyft and LEDA. There is some direction there. We already have a built-in cap. We do this on a quarterly basis. We're getting about $150,000 to disperse a quarter. So when we get that application that's requesting $3 million, which we have, there's already a built-in cap there, right? We could award them $100,000 and the project's probably not going to get done simply because we participated. So those kind of caps are there. Because the rules are public information and the applications are, people know what they can go design their project around, and that's okay. But they're also competing with other applicants. You know, we met this year with this quarter with 2 days left in the cycle with 0 applications. We didn't think we were going to even have to do the process. 2 days later, we had 9 applications. So there's plenty of people out there that are planning. They all have great ideas. Some of them ask very little to provide a lot of economic development. Some of them ask a lot. You know, Melinda mentioned Wild-Glass. You're talking about bringing a service that wasn't available locally, that we were outsourcing. We were outsourcing our taxpayers' dollars into Riverton to provide that service. A company that came in and provided jobs that are people that live here and shop here and provide sales tax dollars. So, you know, that was a big award that also provided a lot of economic development based on our definition of what it is. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. There's a lot of things that the committee's juggling. We have a great evaluation process. We have members within the community that are not on the LEDA board. You know, I'm the LEDA liaison to LIFT. I'm not a voting or scoring member. I'm just there to help keep them on track. And that's my job. And my job is also to report to LEDA back the problems that they're having. And if we need me to be present to council, then I'm here to do that. So that's kind of a little bit about caps. You know, we did discuss the loan process. We know that's I've specifically been approached by community members. I have a lot of clients that are community members that say, well, why don't we just loan the money and have it return as investment? You know, some of the things that we think about, are we competing with our local financial institutions? There's other governmental agencies out here that can do low interest loans and have had success stories within the community as well. So are we really going to compete with that with our $150,000 budget quarterly? Maybe not. Maybe that's where we shouldn't put our efforts. And these are just conversation topics. I'm not trying to gear anybody to make that decision. So we are having those conversations. We absolutely appreciate your feedback. Ultimately, you guys are the guys that are responsible for distributing this tax. You've tasked us with helping do that, and we want to do it how y'all see it fit. So yeah, bring your ideas to us. If you have those that may not know, I work at Summit West CPA. I'm super easy to find. I'm always in town and I'm always working. So several of you have my direct contact. I work with John on the chamber board. I work with Melinda on the LEDA board. I've worked with Missy in the LEDA board in the past. So reach out if you have questions, if you have suggestions, because we're a small group right now, and this is one of our priorities is to see this thing through.
I would say,
Go ahead,
Mayor,
Councilman.
so one thing, Eric, thank you for all of that information shared as well. There are a lot of interesting questions to look at in terms of, like, are there ways to manage loans that lower the likelihood of defaults on it, et cetera. There's, I've been diving into all kinds of possible opportunities there, but I do want to touch on, I think, on something that has been important to all of us here, which is making sure there is adequate support for the primary dollar events. We know there's a number in town that are really key to our local businesses. We want to keep that afloat, as well as being a way to help educate folks about the role of primary dollars. I think a lot of folks don't quite get when we see the signs about shop local and a dollar circulates 6 times in the community kind of thing. But I think what folks don't get is, if I, to use us as an example, say, Josh Hahn had $100 and you spend it at Julia's store. Well, about 50% of that is whatever the goods or services that she had to cover. So she's got $50 left over. She spends it at Monty's place. Same thing. You've got $25 already invested. So it comes down to Melinda. It's $12. By the time it gets down to John's, like, sorry, John, you can get a pack of gum. That's about all that's left. So without new dollars coming in through these primary dollar events, we need that in our community. And I think that's one of the things that is one of the points of education that I think is really important. I know we've mentioned that, and Fremont County has revived, or is in the process of reviving, the PAC. And that's one of the things that they're doing is building the success stories across all of Fremont County so they can advertise those out to folks to show here's neighbors helping neighbors and the benefit that it's created. But again, I think our support for primary dollars is certainly something that's a concern for all of us. So maybe with that, it's time to put that question to bed and move on to the next agenda item. Nope. Oh, John says not yet.
I think we need to talk about these events that does the LIT committee fund events? I know that when I was visiting with Andy, he says that that's kind of been a taboo in the past, but is there a reason for the taboo being there? I mean, is there any reason that the LIT committee can't help fund Brewfest, can't help fund Votra, can't help fund a lot of these different events that bring in the big primary dollars into the community?
I would tell you, so it's not that Lyft doesn't fund events. Certainly we evaluate them. Events are part of the, or one of the things that you can apply for. In fact, this cycle coming around, I believe we have 2 different event request asks. And I think what he may, I don't want to speak for Andy, but one of the things that the LIFT committee has been wrestling with in their evaluation process is they use a questionnaire based on the type of application, events being one of them, capital improvements being one, beautification being one, and so forth. Those questions have not always been able to score the same. So events had a different skew to them because they had like a separate subset of questions. One of the things that we're looking at, we haven't finalized yet, but we're looking at using them this round in the next week or 2, is creating an even question structure to evaluate all these different type of applications. We think that will help score everybody more evenly and appropriately. So Lyft and LITA has no problem funding an event for the right request. I don't think general funding is going to get you very far. I think you need to have probably a good reason to request that and to show that it's going to provide additional economic development. An established, I can speak of, and put my chamber hat on for a second. An established event like Brewfest is going to have to come with a pretty good application to show that they're going to provide additional economic development. Because they're already putting on a huge event that brings in a lot of primary dollars. So, it's the same thing like talking about the caps. If you have somebody that needs a $3 million project and they come ask for $100,000. Well, do they really need that 100,000, or they can probably add it to their other 2.9 that they're going to put in. That's not really going to help. What Dan was talking about. Same way with a big event that's already established. A growing event, completely different story. And we're evaluating some of those in this cycle.
Okay, and that was one of the things that Andy had made a comment on. He says, he says, we've not had anybody come and request funding for an event.
Yeah, we did have a request. I don't remember exactly when it was. It must have been at least a year ago from an event group. They actually did get awarded, but they did turn the money back because ultimately they decided not to go forward with that project. So there's another example, I don't want to continue on and on, but an example of maybe it's not a win, maybe it's not a loss. But we did have somebody that couldn't or decided not to put the skin in the game and ultimately didn't get the award. So I would certainly encourage people that are putting on events or trying to grow events within the community to come to Lyft.
Okay, and well, I'd like to say that's we can get very deep into that conversation. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Eric, thank you very much for coming. I didn't say much. I was just listening. Like I said, if it's not broke, let's tweak it, make it work better. So I appreciate all your time. Tell Lita they've done a great job and we'll keep moving forward with them. So thank you. We'll move on. This discussion concerning potential lead and copper billing discounts. Hunter That's yours, but I have to make a stop. So you go ahead and start. I've heard it.
Okay, great. The Environmental Protection Agency issued mandates that all public water systems do an inventory of their water systems, I think shortly after Flint, Michigan, is kind of what everybody's familiar with. So to know what is in our water pipes that are out there. So we have been trying to figure out a way as a city to figure out what's underneath the streets without digging up the streets to find out what those are. And so an idea we had was to offer a one-time $60 credit to residents in town if they meet these three criteria of signing up for electronic billing, provide updated contact information, and then providing what type of water system is coming into their house. And that's usually by just going and looking at where it comes up through the foundation to see this is a galvanized steel pipe or a lead pipe or a copper pipe or a plastic pipe coming in. So we figured that was the most economical way to try to get the majority of the citizens in town to give us their inventory, what they have, versus going into every single house and trying to see what we have in those. These need to be submitted to the EPA by August 16th, 2024 of our most comprehensive inventory as possible at that point. So within our, I'll say the word water breaks that we had over the winter, we took inventory on our own of what we see out there, but that's kind of what we see in the street. What's going into homes is we see a lot of times is 3 different kinds of pipe going into homes too. So this is the discussion to offer the $60 credit, looking like in August or something like that, when that would take place.
Thank you.
Sure.
Does anybody have any questions for Hunter?
Seems like a great idea. I like the idea of the incentivizing, and who doesn't like an extra $60? Seems like a smart way to go about it.
Put it towards my water bill.
Councilman Larson, did you have any questions or?
No.
Go ahead.
Council President Cox, if I may.
You may.
Thank you.
Get after it.
So Hunter, not an engineer at all, this major. Could I or my mother or somebody like that, is it easy to identify what your pipe is? And I'm embarrassed to ask as a public, but I'm gonna ask. Or can there be guidance saying this is what you're looking for? And so that the self-reporting actually is fairly accurate, I guess, my concern for somebody like me is like, it's a pipe and it's shiny and or rusted, or I don't know. I'm gonna stop talking before I sound even
No, sure,
worse than I do.
sure.
I can take it. I had the same question too.
Thank you,
From
Ed.
like, how do we communicate this to the public and make it easy? And so actually last week we did a lot of research and there's already some guides that already exist. We don't have to recreate them. Actually, NPR has a pretty comprehensive guide that we can refer out to. And I think it was created after Flint, Michigan, so that a homeowner could, hey, go to their basement or wherever that is, follow the appropriate steps, and it sorts you through different topics depending on what your answer is to help you figure that out. We also thought we could have a box on that survey that says, I can't determine it, or
Nice.
I need help or assistance,
See me.
which would then prompt the city to then reply and set up a time for somebody to go in and inspect it and just do a quick check.
Cool.
So
That's brilliant.
I think,
I like that.
yeah, we've been trying to think through how we make this easy and simple. So also I'll just add, the incentive has other hopeful economic benefit to the city too. And I wish Shari was here to kind of explain some of that. But the more people that we can have that sign up for the electronic billing and pay automatically simplifies Danielle's job immensely. Like the less bills we have to send out, the quicker things get paid. It would just streamline processes for the city in the future too, if we can switch more people over to that method.
Great.
So there's a reason to combine those two efforts.
Yeah, that seems super smart. If I may do a follow-up too. Oh, just my mind, shoot. Come back to me, please.
Two things for this. I think you said communication was one of the options that they would, if they applied for this and get the credit, you said it was e-billing.
Yeah, so they would need to
Source-
sign up for the like paperless
Right.
billing
So there's that.
and the automatic payments.
But was there something about communication from the city? Because if not, I would suggest this is an opportunity to say, do you want to opt in as well to emergency alert, snowplow, et cetera.
Yeah, and that's what I'm looking into to see if that database will allow us to import in that information. Like right now, it's a self sign up. There's not a way for me to import like an Excel document of people's numbers. So that's another check we need to do before it gets rolled out. But yeah,
Okay.
we could add that
Yeah.
into that as well.
Or at the very least, that's a point of education for folks. Hey, another way to help the city be efficient and for you to be communicated with in a timely fashion is do
Yep.
X, Y, and Z, and here's how you do it. So coming back to this more specifically, is this only for the service line or internal pipes within the house? Because for instance, I had to replace my service line a few years ago, but I still have some old galvanized pipe in the house. So which is it you want to know, or both?
It's the service line is what
Okay.
EPA is asking for, but with this, we can also provide information of like, this is what you're drinking inside your house too. So if that's
Okay.
helpful for folks.
Okay. John just told me I'm gonna die. Yes, John, I will at some point, but hopefully not in the near future. And because of that. Great, thanks.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Yes, thanks. I recalled what I was trying to go for. So Hunter, EPA wants us to inventory. It's good for us to know what's out there. It's good for the homeowner, frankly, to know what their service line is. Is there then an and or a but of what happens with the inventory? What do we do next?
And I think that's why we've been holding off, is because I'd rather roll out a project knowing what the next step is, and we don't have that next step yet.
All right.
I mean, there's thought of what the next step could be, but
So at the very
it's all
least,
speculative.
we need to submit that to the EPA what that inventory is. But that is exactly it. It's like, if we found a hot spot in town, you know, maybe this is the time to, if we have funds to replace these lines, because we have a lot of lead in this area over here. But that's at least having data as the first step in that.
Yeah, we don't know if like grant funding could come down the pipe. You know, how that would get awarded. I mean, there's so many unknowns, and those are all just guesses.
Great. No, that's fine. I think I was just curious if there's any other asterisks from the inventory direction there. Thanks.
Anybody else? Hunter? Anything else? No? Not enough? Okay, thank you. Discussion concerning resolution 1286, updating the city procurement procedure and replacement of current procurement resolution. Rachel?
So this proposed resolution was in your packet. What it does in essence is update to a large extent the policy we currently have with this changes in the Wyoming state statute. So the upper limit used to be $35,000. That changed to $75,000. The low limit of where it used to be 3,000, staff proposed 7,500 with the cost of inflation and things of that nature. But that isn't a statutory number. That was just a proposal on that 7,500. So open to comments or discussion. Certainly, this is a fluid document, and I want to read it one more time. Looking at, just for the first time today, I actually pulled the resolution that it's replacing and saw that there were some things attached to it and that I want to double check. Regine started this project. I sort of helped her with it once I saw that the statute had changed. Anyway, this is a fluid document. You may see it again in a draft format, but just wanting to bring it to your attention as a starting point that we're moving towards updating these numbers and policies. There have been some changes too about vehicles and things like that that you may have noticed. Mayor.
Go ahead.
This is fabulous. This is exactly what I was kind of mentioning earlier about the opportunity that we have to review these at an early stage. So thank you for rolling them out in this manner. I think this is going to be really beneficial long-term.
Any questions? Does council feel like 7,500 is a too high, too low, an appropriate amount?
Are we talking 75,000?
No, there's the minimum is 7,500 to
700, right.
75,000, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I think that looks good. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, I will continue to work on it and you may see it again.
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
You'll definitely see it again. It's just
Yeah.
a matter of what it looks like.
Thanks, Rochelle. Moving on, number 2, old business. There's no action here, but we do need I thought the other one was long, but I think this one might be a little longer. There's a fee schedule. Resolution 1285. I think that we need to discuss this in length and get something prepared to present to it at the next council meeting. Because if we don't get it solved, then it will probably go away. Go back to the original fee schedule.
Right.
Yeah,
Which is even worse for some of the groups that are concerned than how
right.
it
'Cause it
currently
goes Back
is.
to the regular
Yeah.
fee schedule, so.
Yeah.
It has Lance down here to start on the fee schedule. So.
Yeah.
Hunter, did you want to talk a little bit about fee schedules or Rachel?
I just wanted to add that in your packet, there was a proposed resolution concerning fee schedules proposed by Council Member Stubble. After the packets went out, I received one from staff. And that proposal separated the building contractors' fees, and that became resolution 1289, if my memory serves me correct. And then there was also 1285, which was the first part of where the ticketed gate fees and things of that nature are. That was proposal from staff. And then I received a proposal from Councilmember White, and hers is the matrix that had the colored here and there, sort of a graduated one. And I think those are the three that you have in front of you. And I just wanted to explain where those came from. And I received Councilmember White's this today, so that's why they weren't in your packet.
So I don't see one from Julia.
So yeah, if I may, thanks, Rochelle. I think what we have in front of us in print, that was all distributed with our three versions here.
Mhm.
The one that has red fonts with some strike through around rodeo grounds and Lions Shelter, that's my proposal. I think the Google Doc listed that, but the way it's come out
Oh,
printed here,
got it.
it's not listed as my proposal. Then you have a clean version, which is the existing staff proposal. And then Missy, your matrix.
Got it.
So three documents here. Plus the pull out of the.
While they're getting their stuff organized, I just want to touch base with Hunter. You have a scheduled time to meet with the contractors?
Not yet. We're actually working on building our board of appeals first, and then we'll work with getting new contractors on the next step on that. So I don't believe 1289 is in today's discussion topic period.
Okay.
That's kind of one of the reasons to help separate the two fee
I
schedules.
just had it here, so I just wanted to
Sure.
put that out to the public that we are working on it.
Yep.
And we've had this fee schedule in place for years,
Yep.
and we just haven't implemented. If I'm wrong, you can tell me, be quiet. Like
No.
we're getting ready, so.
It's just clarity, just
It's
trying
just
to.
clarity, so like I said, I want to let people know it's been here. We just haven't made good use of it, enforced it. You're right.
There's no changes.
There's been no changes on that, right?
There are a few, and in fact, they're actually making it less expensive for contractors, but I think a lot of the contention is just the fact that there are permit fees, again, on 1289. But those always have existed. It's just clarity that a water heater is a permit, but that always has been a permit, so.
It's nothing new, it's just, we brought it to the forefront.
Right. Mayor, I do have a quick question of clarification. I'd like to address the resolution 1289, just because I do think it might be a little bit quicker, and then if that's okay with you first.
Sure.
My question would be, if a city employee has to go out on a weekend due to a hot water heater, as an example, is that then time and a half where that would be on the contractor, or who would take that cost? Are we going to just do a set fee?
Sure. If it's a contractor doing the work, it would probably be Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So we'd probably catch 90% of these types of projects during business hours, during scheduled times. The fee would not be passed on to the contractor, whether it was a Saturday inspection, say. But ideally it would be if it was in your home and you installed your own water heater, that we'd be like, okay, Monday at 3 o'clock, can I meet you after work to come take a look at this too, and schedule the inspection after it's even installed too. So try not to take employees in after hours or on weekends to do things like this. But
Okay.
scheduling times, and that's part of our software we're working with the stacker is to actually be able to schedule that online too, just to know. It's kind of getting your cable installed at your house. You need to be home between the hours of 8 and 8 or something like that. So that's the intention, is to try to get this stuff done during business hours.
Right. So there would be no additional cost associated with that.
No.
Thank you.
Questions on that one, little one? Okay. Looks good, Hunter. Appreciate all the hard work you've been doing on this, and Rachel too. This has been a touchy subject. It's like I said, we're not here. As you guys see, we're not making any money on these deals. It's just fee schedule we've had, and we need to implement it so we can keep people safe. So thank you, Hunter. Okay. Move on to resolution 1285. Everybody got their stuff lined out? Councilwoman White.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may, I realize like what I put on paper is not always aligned with how other people think. So if I could take a couple of minutes to share with y'all what I was thinking about this. So in terms of the Lions Shelter North Park stage, keeping with, so obviously yellow is the current that's in place right now. What's being proposed is the gray, and then mine is to the right with a little bit of the orange there. So a couple of things here, is one noting, I think it'd be helpful for users of our public spaces if we anticipate having a scheduled increase. So the first one is at $25 a year. Some are a little bit bigger, but if that's something that we anticipate doing, I think it's appropriate to share that with the community at large so that they can be anticipating that in their budgeting process for future years. And one thing for me that I think is important to note, both, on the North Park as well as for city park events, is the idea of expanding more on the ticketed events. When we previously had this on the agenda, Aaron Robson, who's here again tonight, talked about the challenge for some of our smaller events that use these space that have ticketed items, that if they were to increase their ticket fee, $5 per ticket, it doesn't go to their organization. It still all goes to, it's their gate fee and the percentage of it. So that's why I wanted to break out this idea of more of a flat fee for a ticket event. If it's up to 150 people, say for instance, $250 is their fee. 151 to 300, it's $500, et cetera. And again, showing if we were to increase that from year to year, again, being able to share that proactively so these events and organizations can plan appropriately in their budget for that. And to me, I think that makes it a lot easier for some of our smaller organizations, smaller events that are ticketed events to be able to better manage their cost and yet still contribute. I think in our earlier conversations, we were generally agreed that we did want folks to contribute, even if it seems a small amount. Philosophically, that was something we were on board with. For some of these smaller areas like the gazebo and Dillon Park, Centennial Park, one thing I would like to see is, and this depends a little bit on whether or not our scheduling platform can accommodate it. I think it'd be really helpful to have blocks during the day. I've used those events in the morning. I'm done by noon, but because I had to block it for the whole day, that meant that kid's birthday party couldn't be at the gazebo in City Park, which is a bummer. So I would suggest that, and then having a fee for block, and again, scaled for the size of folks for it. And then I think the rest is fairly straightforward, again with, and sorry, on my version, it all printed on one page, but it didn't for us. So there's a second page for ticketed events for the rodeo grounds. And this is going back to our discussion 2 meetings ago when we were discussing it. I said, okay, so how about if we looked at $2,000 max this year, next year bumping it up to $2,500 and $500 for subsequent years, up to, so slowly building up to that $4,000 max. And at that point, we had all agreed upon it and said that would seem like a good way to go. Some of our representatives said that was amenable to them. And then our next meeting, that totally went awry and we came up with something else yet again. So wanted to bring that back. It seemed like we were on board with that, so wanted to bring that back for our consideration. So that's trying to explain my thoughts there about how to manage our fee structure in an equitable fashion, in transparent fashion. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Stoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that, thanks for that summary missing for the proposal you put together here and the data with it. I think that the top question for the rodeo facilities and the Lions shelter, so if we're trying to think like what questions and what order are we taking these? I think one of the major questions that came out of the last meeting that we need to resolve today is whether or not we want a percentage of tickets at all. And so whether or not it's capped or how it's capped, or if it's incrementally raised on the cap, are we looking at having a flat fee that's applies to a number of persons as it has been in the past? Or do we want to add a percentage of tickets? And you'll see in my proposal, I am striking out the 10% of any gate fee with any cap on it at all, and just reverting to what we have had in the past, which is a flat fee for the Lions shelter and the rodeo grounds of a certain amount of money. So in this case, I mean, we can get into the details there, but let's focus on, do we want a percentage of tickets if it's a ticketed event? And I thought I heard at our last meeting that it sounded like we had most of us saying no, but I think it's worth revisiting that.
Council. Go ahead.
I don't really have anything. I appreciate all of this work that's gone into it, and I think I have some thoughts, and I would align more with not having a percentage of the gate. I think it's equitable,
Just go by the day rate.
just the day rate, and it makes it clean, and it doesn't. And I think that I can appreciate the increase and the notification early on about a potential increase, and certainly respect that thought. But for now, I would align with no percentage. Daily.
Councilman Hahn?
I also agree with the no percentage on the gate fee. And yeah, sticking with the just the original cost.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Markey.
I guess the only thing that I see with the gate fee, we've got that at $500 a day for the rodeo facility, and I guess the same thing for the lion shelter. That's the maximum. I was looking through the materials that we were sent, and it showed the rodeo grounds master plan, and boy, at $1,000 July 4th weekend, we're gonna be a long time trying to get any of this these upgrades done at the rodeo grounds. You know, so I think that we need to maybe evaluate the day fee, or look at some way that that we can get more use of the rodeo grounds per se. You know, you use them more often than just one weekend a year, and to help raise some money, because my goodness, there's.
And that's been in our discussion with council and president. But that maybe we need to look outside and let Locher do the rodeo, but see if we can't find a contract person to take over the rodeo grounds and incentivize it to have more events come in. We got a great facility up there. We just don't use it.
Mr. Mayor, can you get a little closer to the mic, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. That we find a contract person to come in and contract the rodeo grounds out for the year and incentivize them to come in and get more events to come into our rodeo ground. And they'll just still have their 4th of July rodeo and stuff, but that'd be their weekend, but see if we can't get somebody in there and make that facilities great. We just need to make it better. The whole facility as a whole, so have more events coming into the rodeo ground. And that's just, we throw that around a few times and you just throwed it out there. So I thought I'd just add to it. It has been thought about how do we make this a successful adventure.
Mr.
So,
Mayor,
go ahead.
and I think, I mean, for us to return to looking at our fees, I think that's an awesome idea and I'm glad it's happening. No, thank you. I think that actually what comes to mind for me out of that point in yours, Councilman Larson, is that if we want to have greater use of that area to contribute to the cost that we're seeing, the upgrades we need to make and the maintenance, then we can't have it so expensive that nobody will rent that place. And so I think there's a balance point we're trying to find, right? That we want to have infrastructure that provides a service to the community and that we can find a way to fund, and the fee is a small way we can look at having some costs covered, but I do not want to see that disincentivize the fact that then no one can use our facilities. And so my proposal of striking the gate fee and striking the cap for the gate fee and just looking at a base rate for the number of people does include an increase from what we have previously charged in the years we had flat rates for the rodeo grounds. There is an increase to $500 a day. It had been $300 a day. Again, in the years between, we had that 10% increase, at which point Locher paid $7,000. So I will say that when we collected the rental fee, when we were using the gate fee scenario or formula, we brought in an extensive amount of revenue in that 1 year. If we're concerned about looking incrementally, like I guess what I want to say is to some degree, this entity and in this example and some others in the Lions Shelter have paid an exorbitant amount in 1 year. So that I think it's okay for us to look at delaying the incrementally approach. Like they've paid for a few years by paying $7,000 in 1 year when they had been paying $600. Let me come back to my main point though. My proposal does have an increase on the day rate for groups over $500 to $500. It had been $300.
Mayor, can I
Go
make
ahead.
a comment? I think when I was delving into this a little bit, I looked at our fee structure with the community center and we charge a per day.
Mhm.
And I just did an incredible event there with the CDS, and we don't charge for their ticket sales, and they raise a lot of money for ticket sales, and we shouldn't. I'm not saying that we should, but it is simply the same thing. It's a nonprofit having to do a fundraiser to continue to provide an incredible event in our community. And so I certainly wouldn't want Dancing with the Stars to have to kick in 10% of their ticket sales. That's an astronomical amount of money that they would lose to that event. And I think that, you have to consider the fact that that there's so many different layers. It's like it's like these tentacles in all areas. And how do you look at that globally and do what's in the best interest of everybody? And that is a flat rate fee and allow these auxiliaries to generate some revenue that then go back into our community. Ideally. So just 2 cents. I agree with you 100%, but even charging $4,000 a year in 10 years, you're only getting $40,000. You looked at what that's not going to pay for it either. So I would agree 100%. We're going to have to figure that out. I don't know that that's charging 10%.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep, 100% would agree with that. Yep.
Well, I'll add something to this. I think everybody knows how I feel, about the rodeo, but, we don't, I don't hear anybody, complain about, what's the community, so what's the loss on the community center a year? 100,000, 150,000?
In the 100.
Nobody says anything about that. And we're not sure about what it costs at the rodeo. We talked about this. I'd love to know because we were talking about it. We don't have enough information to make a real, a quality decision. And I think that the money that's brought in from rodeo, I think it's huge. I still think that it adds. But my comment on this is what I'd really like to do is go with what Julia had. Take a look next year. This is something that we can readdress and get more information and actually have some solid information that we can make a decision and make a decision next year. That's my suggestion because. Well, what do we do? What do we do about the community center? Nobody says anything about that and that's a big deal. Well, nobody talks about it. I mean, I'm just saying that we have no idea if this is $10,000 or $5,000 or what. And we have $150,000. Well, that's all I'm saying. I think we need to have more information to make a decent decision. And let's try to get that information before.
We need to move forward with the proposal. So we know what to bring back at the next council meeting. Whether you go with Missy's or Julie's or the cities. There's 3 proposals here. And, this is a majority thing and this is what you agree with is Julie's or Missy's or cities, then we need to make sure we get it on the agenda and that's what we're here for tonight.
And and I think going back to what you just mentioned, Dan, last time the community center rates were raised, there was incredible outcry from the community about you're at the threshold that you're about to price it out of the use for it.
I totally understand, but at the same situation, we don't know what we have, if they're on the brink of something, the rodeo is on the brink of a disaster too, and that's where I would like to have more information because I tell you what, we're not talking about a lot of money.
Yeah.
We know we're losing a lot at the community center, but this is not, I mean, this is not what, $3,000-4,000 over?
Or
Yeah.
$4,000. I'll tell you what, if
for an event.
$4,000 is gonna break us at this point, wow. I mean, man, I'm telling you.
Yeah,
that-
I'd also remind us that when the half-cent economic development tax came up and among us, we had a question about, would it be appropriate for us to apply for funds from that? It was vehemently no, that it would look very bad. So like now we're arguing the other thing that we're saying we should apply for that and use it for city infrastructure that's used for things. I think we need to be very mindful about nearly a 180 in our perspective on that. Because 2 years ago, we were very clear that that would very quickly dam the tax, pardon my language. And now we're saying, oh, maybe we should use it for that. And we're doing exactly what we said the public, or we're proposing to do exactly what the public was afraid we would do, that we would use the tax for city infrastructure. So, just putting that out there of, I mean, I get it. I know we want fabulous events in our fantastic facilities. And our primary goal is fiduciary. And we need to be really careful about how we do that. So. I do. Yep, that's right.
I would, Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Go ahead.
I think, I don't want us to veer too much into the, off topic into the lift that whether or not we're applying, but Councilwoman White, if I may do an amendment, you're saying it looks like a 180 because now we're saying we should apply. I don't think we are saying we should apply. I think some council people have said that. The council has not made a group decision that now that is our new opinion.
Correct. But folks have said, rather than ask the end users, the city could consider applying for the sound system at the rodeo or, et cetera, et cetera. So it is being brought forward as a potential option. So I want to caution us that 2 years ago, when this came up, we were quite clear that that was not a road we wanted to go down because of the concerns of the public image for that.
Okay, go ahead. You got something
Well,
else?
Mr. Mayor, have we settled on the proposal I put forward for the rodeo is something we want to see in the
Let me
resolution?
just get back.
Please, yeah.
Josh?
I'm fairly new here, so I don't know the answer to this question. Seeing as how everything seems to run off of grants and everything, and I'm looking at this rodeo ground master plan. And the city wants to utilize that space for different functions. Why can't the city take a grant and get some of this stuff knocked out with a grant?
We just have to go look for it.
And then that kind of alleviates your problem. And I know a lot of the locals like going to the rodeo, so I think it'd be a good use of their tax money paying towards a grant for something like that.
And we can, but let's go back to this proposal. Which one do you think? Julia's?
I like Julia's. That's my,
You don't like yours?
Oh, I'll vote. No, I stand by my proposal, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. We're gonna throw another wrench out there.
A flat fee. Councilman on. This one? Councilman White? I got
Um,
four.
No, I mean, I realize this sounds egotistical. That's not where I'm coming from. I'm looking at the ways, we have pounds to make up, and this is a way that ounces can contribute towards that. And I don't think this is going to price anybody out of, the use of our city facilities.
So, okay, Councilman Larson. I think you kind of. Okay. Rochelle. I think we'll move forward with this proposal.
Just for clarification, Mr. Mayor, this proposal being Councilmember Subel's.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. My second question for council is, are you in favor of separating out the contractor fees and having that as a separate resolution?
I think. so.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
moving forward with the main one is Councilman Subel. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, there is, if I may.
Yes,
I mean,
ma'am.
we discussed the rodeo a lot and I heard,
Right.
great, that's going forward. Thank you. I hope that's true for the Lions shelter as well. We haven't discussed that yet. And I will say that Councilman White, I do like your proposal for changes to the gazebo and doing the day options and the blocks and making those prices are more affordable. So I would like to see the proposal that Councilman White put forward for gazebo, Dillon Centennial to go forward as a change to the resolution as well.
Okay, good to see. It's a hybrid.
If it's all right with council, then I will work on that draft and perhaps run it by maybe council member Stubble to see if this was the vision. Is that appropriate? Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Anything else that we missed on this fee schedule? It's a work session when you go home. Yes. Happy birthday.
Are we
It
done?
was
We
good.
should announce it. Thank you.
Have a happy birthday. Okay, we're done. You guys over there are done, we're done.
Drop the
You wanna
mics before
stay?
break.
Drop the mic. That had to be decided tonight. We go back to the fee schedule. We go back to the fee schedule.